As mentioned in the previous episode, Stefan thought that Elena's feelings for Damon were a result of the sire bond, but in reality, Elena had developed genuine feelings for Damon before she even became a vampire. Her emotions for Damon were real. Tyler has now become the leader of the hybrids. Meanwhile, Bonnie has decided to learn a form of magic known as expression, after Tyler helped all the hybrids break their sire bond. They are now preparing to band together and overthrow Klaus. Haley joins the cause, claiming that she's made contact with a witch who can help them seal Klaus. However, sealing Klaus requires a vessel to be sacrificed, and as the alpha, Tyler plans to sacrifice himself. When Caroline finds out, she is absolutely livid. Tyler isn't just her boyfriend, he's also the leader of the pack. Although Caroline can hardly bear the thought, she respects Tyler's decision. Caroline later reveals Tyler's plan to Stefan. Tyler's rebellion could jeopardize Stefan's plans, as Klaus holds the key to unlocking the map to the Cure the Hunter's sword. Stefan has to find that sword before Klaus is sealed away, but after searching Klaus' mansion, he comes up empty-handed. Damon suggests simply warning Klaus, since when it comes to curing Elena, Klaus is on the same side as the two brothers. Stefan rejects the idea, deciding instead to have Caroline convince Tyler to postpone the rebellion, but Tyler had anticipated this move and is furious with Caroline for betraying him. His pack had risked their lives for freedom, while Stefan and the others only cared about turning Elena back into a human. Tyler insists that he has to do what's right for his pack, so he refuses to back down. Stefan prepares to use force, but Tyler is no longer the underdog. With 12 hybrids watching him, Stefan can't make a move.
But you don't have a choice.
Meanwhile, Elena, accompanied by Damon, goes to visit her brother. Their reunion quickly turns tense. Bonnie has been spending time with Jeremy, all the while learning new magic from Professor Shane. Strangely enough, Jeremy shows no reaction to other vampires, but he's obsessed with killing his sister. Jeremy's attacks are nearly impossible to predict, and it's only thanks to Elena's quick reflexes that he doesn't succeed. Professor Shane decides to use hypnosis to delve into Jeremy's subconscious to uncover his true feelings. When Jeremy is hypnotized, Professor Shane asks him how he feels about Elena.
She ruined our lives. She's not even my real sister. She's just the reason that everyone I've ever loved has died. She means nothing to me. I will kill her, even if that means I die myself.
Shockingly, Jeremy admits that he utterly hates his sister. Professor Shane quickly wakes Jeremy up. Everyone is silent, and Elena holds back her tears. Jeremy's summary, painful as it is, hits the nail on the head. Everyone who's died, directly or indirectly, did so to protect Elena. Damon tries to comfort the wounded Elena, but her love for him quickly overshadows her sadness, which only fills Damon with guilt. Because Damon, out of selfishness, hadn't broken Elena's sire bond, his words of comfort carried the weight of a command, more like an order than reassurance. It isn't fair to either Elena or Stefan, so Damon backs away. Damon came up with a plan to play matchmaker between Bonnie and Jeremy, hoping Bonnie could be Jeremy's emotional anchor. After all, they had a history together, and their feelings for each other were genuine. Love, Damon believed, could heal all wounds. Damon also intended to figure out Professor Shane's motives, so he grabbed an axe and stormed in with murderous intent. Professor Shane confessed that he wasn't interested in the cure for vampirism. However, the cure was linked to the legendary immortal, Silas. He didn't need the hunter's sword to find the cure's location. They were all shocked, not expecting any unexpected gains. It turned out that after Silas's lover was killed, his eternal life became a torment. In response, Silas created a cure for immortality, but the witch Katsia buried Silas and the cure deep underground. Professor Shane then explained the secret of the hunter's mark. The symbol on the back of the hand represented the 5. The designs on the arm told the story of Silas and how the witch Katsia killed Silas's lover. The vines higher up form a map that leads to Silas's burial site. The tattoo on the chest was the most crucial part, revealing the spell needed to unearth Silas. However, Jeremy's tattoo hadn't fully expanded yet.
When his hunter's mark's complete, I'm gonna take you to the cure.
Tyler was still set on sacrificing himself to seal Klaus. Caroline, thinking on her feet, suggested using Rebecca's body as the vessel.
We just killed 2 original birds with 1 stone.
It's too late to change the plan.
Haley's opposition to the idea seemed strange, but Tyler agreed with the plan. While they were getting intimate, Haley secretly texted Professor Shane, warning him that Caroline's plan would disrupt their own. In truth, Tyler's revolution for freedom had been orchestrated by Professor Shane all along. His goal wasn't for the hybrids to overthrow Klaus, but rather to push the hybrids back under Klaus's control. Professor Shane needed to sacrifice 12 hybrids in a ritual, and Klaus was the only one who could make that happen, to prevent their plan from falling apart. Haley knocked Caroline out and tipped Klaus off about the hybrids' rebellion. Stefan happened to pass by, but Klaus pretended as though nothing was amiss. He even asked Stefan if he had anything to tell him. After a moment of silence, Stefan confessed that he had searched through Klaus's safe. Klaus was heartbroken. Tears welled up in his eyes. Since Professor Shane knew the location of the cure, Stefan no longer needed Klaus's sword, so Stefan kept quiet about Tyler's rebellion, effectively leaving Klaus to fend for himself. But what Stefan didn't know was that Haley had already warned Klaus. Klaus had asked Stefan that question specifically to gauge his loyalty. Even a subtle hint would have sufficed, but Stefan said nothing. Loneliness was Klaus's greatest enemy. Tears shimmered in his eyes, but he smiled through them. When a hybrid approached, Klaus knew they were about to make their move. He instantly suppressed his sadness, his gaze sharpening. If you want to die, Klaus thought, then I'll be happy to grant your wish.
But in the end, we're left infinitely and utterly alone.
As Stefan watched Klaus walk away, a sense of guilt crept over him. On the other side, April discovered Caroline's body. Her pulse was gone, but the next second, Caroline came back to life, leaving April completely terrified. Caroline, however, didn't have time to worry about April. Right in front of her, she called Stefan, saying that Haley was suspicious and that he should check Rebecca's body. After hanging up, Caroline immediately tried to erase April's memory, but what she didn't know was that April was wearing a verbena bracelet. The compulsion didn't work. By the time Caroline found out the truth from Matt, April had already escaped. At the party, Tyler found Haley and asked where the witch she contacted was. As the plan was about to begin,
I never intended for you to put Klaus down. I needed him for the sacrifice.
Klaus, like a dark god, was slaughtering the 12 hybrids. As powerful as Klaus was, even he couldn't win against people's hearts. And this was exactly the trap Professor Shane had set. In the previous explosion, Professor Shane had sacrificed 12 humans, and now he used Klaus to sacrifice 12 supernatural beings. The reason Haley helped Professor Shane set this up was so she could find her biological parents. She had left Tyler an escape route. By destroying the hybrids he had created with his own hands, Klaus's heart bled, but what he hated most was betrayal. Under the comfort of love, Jeremy finally softened his hatred toward Elena. Though Professor Shane appeared harmless, tonight, 12 lives were lost because of him. Elena was deeply grateful to Damon, but Damon had been feeling guilty all day. He told Elena to return to town, saying, "We should spend some time apart."
I'm setting you free, Elena. This is what I want. This is what will make me happy.
Though he delayed it for a day, Damon ultimately set her free. Meanwhile, Caroline informed Stefan that Elena and Damon had slept together. Stefan was devastated. He had naively believed that his brother would break the sire bond and that the two of them would work together to find the cure and turn Elena back into a human, after which they would compete for her fairly. All the hybrids were dead, and Tyler, who had only been alpha for 2 days, had now become a lone wolf. April was hiding in the cellar. She found Rebecca's body. The party was over, but Mayor Lockwood was still waiting for her son to return. Instead, Klaus, covered in blood, showed up. He too was waiting for Tyler. Carol immediately pleaded for her son.
He's all I have.
And you're all he has.
Since April had freed Rebecca, Elena's troubles were about to begin. That morning, at Mayor Lockwood's memorial service, Elena suddenly saw Rebecca in the crowd. Thinking she was hallucinating, she chased after her to investigate. The town's newly elected mayor turned out to be Bonnie's father. In the hallway, April exposed Elena's identity as a vampire because of Rebecca. As Elena stood there in shock, Rebecca appeared and snapped Elena's neck. Ever since Stefan found out that Elena had slept with Damon, he had been drowning his sorrows in alcohol. What he didn't know was that Damon, for the sake of brotherhood, was intentionally distancing himself from Elena, staying behind at the lake house to train Jeremy. Damon, the devilish trainer, was very strict. As Damon checked his voicemail, all the messages were from Elena. Meanwhile, Stefan and Caroline both received invitations from Rebecca. In order to save Elena, They had no choice but to attend the gathering. As an original vampire, Rebecca easily compelled them. She wanted to know everything that had happened during her time in the coffin, and to her surprise, Elena and Stefan had broken up. Both Elena and Stefan tried to avoid the topic, but Rebecca made it clear she wanted the truth.
She slept with Damon.
Elena was both shocked and furious, shocked that Stefan knew, and furious because it must have been Caroline who spilled the secret. Rebecca's compulsion forced them to strip away their lies. After their physical training session, Damon began teaching Jeremy how to shoot. Unexpectedly, Klaus arrives and is also concerned about Jeremy's training progress. Klaus wanted Jeremy to grow quickly and complete the tattoo, so he offered to help. Damon begrudgingly agreed.
Now that you mention it, Jeremy, watch and learn.
Damon fired those shots for the late Carol. As payback to Klaus, there aren't many people who can hurt Klaus, and Jeremy's eyes are full of admiration. Back to Rebecca's interrogation, she finally got the chance to take revenge on Elena and Stefan. She forced them to reveal the details of their breakup. It was like rubbing salt in the wound. Because of the compulsion, Elena had no choice but to speak the truth. She wasn't with Damon because of the sire bond, but because she loved him. This statement made Stefan extremely uncomfortable, and Caroline quickly tried to change the subject. Under Rebecca's compulsion, Stefan revealed that Professor Shane knew the location of the cure. Meanwhile, Bonnie was confiding her frustrations to Professor Shane. The father who had abandoned his wife and child unexpectedly returned to town and even took over the role of mayor. They would inevitably cross paths, and Bonnie wasn't sure how to handle her relationship with him. Professor Shane gave Bonnie a bracelet, which was said to have belonged to the witch Katsia 2,000 years ago. This was a graduation gift from Professor Shane to Bonnie. He assured her that she had fully regained her magical abilities and could now cast spells with confidence. As Bonnie was leaving, she crossed paths with Cole, one of the originals. By the time she recognized him, Professor Shane had already been taken. Elena and the others have been hypnotized, and Rebecca is not worried about them escaping. Rebecca and Cole plan to force the location of the cure out of Professor Shane, but to their surprise, Professor Shane was unerringly enthusiastic. Two original vampires stood before him, and for him, today's encounter was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Rebecca attempted to compel him, but to her shock, it didn't work on Professor Shane.
Right, well, we'll just have to do this the old-fashioned way. Beat him until he tells you where to find it.
Never invite a strange girl into your home. What if she's a vampire, hungry for the blood in your veins? What the female vampire didn't expect, however, was that these two strong men had been specially trained. Jeremy swiftly and cleanly drove a stake through the vampire's heart, and immediately, the hunter's mark on his body began to expand. In fact, this was Klaus's test for Jeremy. He had privately confronted Damon, accusing him of delaying Jeremy's involvement in real combat. Klaus exposed Damon's true motives. His protection of Jeremy was really just to make Elena see him in a better light. Meanwhile, Rebecca, still bent on revenge, suggested they play truth or dare. Under her compulsion, Elena confessed her feelings about Damon and Stefan. Rebecca asked Elena to describe it in more detail so that Stefan could see Elena clearly. Elena admitted that Stefan looked at her like she was a broken, beloved toy, and his obsession was in trying to fix her. This was Elena's most honest, inner thought. Stefan was utterly heartbroken by her words. Rebecca, with a wicked grin, then asked one final question: could there be a twist? Hope flickered in Stefan's eyes once again.
Are you still in love with Stefan? No.
But just as quickly, that hope was extinguished. Rebecca was satisfied. Stefan had abandoned her for Elena, and now she was going to make him taste the sting of being abandoned by the one he loved. At that moment, Tyler arrived. The truth-telling was over. Now it was time for the dare. Rebecca compelled Tyler to transform into a werewolf, leaving Elena and the others to evade Tyler's hunt without being able to use their vampire abilities. At the same time, Bonnie arrived at the chemistry lab to cast a spell, only to find April hiding there. It was then that Bonnie learned Rebecca had been freed and was toying with Elena and the others. But Bonnie's priority was saving Professor Shane. In front of April, Bonnie cast a protection spell on Professor Shane, but something went wrong. The spell accidentally linked Professor Shane and April. Now, all of Professor Shane's suffering was being transferred to April. Professor Shane spilled everything about the cure and Silas, not realizing that it would cost him his life. When Cole learned that Professor Shane's goal was to release Silas, he was both shocked and furious. He prepared to drown Professor Shane. At the same time, Water began pouring from April's nose and mouth, as if she were about to drown as well. Bonnie finally realized what was going on. Her magic had gone wrong. Luckily, Rebecca stopped her brother. Cole was livid.
Silas is very real. I know where he's buried. And soon we'll have the spell that wakes him.
If Silas were to rise, the original family would be wiped out. But Rebecca didn't believe in Silas's existence. Professor Shane revealed his plan to resurrect Silas, admitting that he had orchestrated both sacrificial rituals. It was only then that Rebecca learned that the mastermind behind April's father's death was actually Professor Shane. Is Silas, the immortal, really that powerful, able to bring martyrs back to life? Professor Shane's fanaticism left Rebecca unsettled, but Cole had already decided to kill him. While Rebecca was distracted, Cole stabbed Professor Shane with an iron rod. At the same moment, blood began pouring from April's abdomen. Bonnie's so-called protection spell wasn't protection at all, it was a dark magic that transferred pain. Rebecca didn't grasp the terror of Silas, but Cole had plenty of witch friends, and Silas was a forbidden entity not to be trifled with. Knowing his sister's obsession with the cure, Cole stole the white oak stake to prevent Rebecca from doing something reckless. After the siblings left, Professor Shane, who had only been faking his death, pulled the iron rod from his body. He had planned ahead. April had taken the damage for him. The reason Bonnie's spell went wrong was because the magic she had been practicing, called expression, was an even darker and more evil form of magic than dark magic. As April teetered on the brink of death, Elena and Stefan arrived just in time. Stefan quickly healed April with his blood. Still shaken, Bonnie explained that casting spells had always caused her pain and blood loss, but now her powers had grown stronger than ever, with no side effects. Because the power was too strong for her to fully control, she nearly caused a disastrous outcome. After Bonnie left with April, Elena tried to talk to Stefan, but today Elena had hurt him too much. Rebecca came to cause trouble again. Despite Elena's betrayal, Stefan still stood protectively in front of her. Even Rebecca couldn't stand to watch. In an uncharacteristic moment of kindness, Rebecca offered to compel Stefan, as an original vampire, to make him forget everything about Elena. It would be both a release and a redemption for him.
Do it.
Excuse me?
Erase it all. I'm remembering.
Stefan, no.
I said do it.
Stefan had made up his mind. He wanted to completely cut ties with Elena, but Rebecca mocked him, saying,
No. It would be far too easy.
Rebecca wanted Stefan to feel the pain of unrequited love and keep Elena drowning in guilt. Both Stefan and Elena had been stripped of their illusions today. How would they move forward from here? They locked eyes for a long moment before Stefan, with his broken heart, turned and walked away. Elena chased after him. Don't look back. This time, he was strong enough not to look back. Tyler had finally regained his freedom, and thankfully, he hadn't harmed anyone. Rebecca's interference ended up strengthening Caroline and Tyler's relationship even more. Bonnie, filled with anger, confronted Professor Shane. She suspected the magic he had taught her wasn't what it seemed, and she wanted answers. Professor Shane continued to hide the truth about the sacrifices, reassuring Bonnie that magic isn't inherently good or evil. It all depends on the person using it. Rebecca's game left Elena with no escape, forcing her to end the ambiguity between Damon and Stefan. Now, Elena could only fully commit to loving Damon.
I love you, Damon.
Damon, however, was filled with mixed emotions. He first told Elena that he was still committed to finding the cure. This is not for Elena's sake, but to soothe Stefan's obsession. He must win glory and fairness. Elena wanted to persuade Damon otherwise, but Damon couldn't contain his excitement.
Right now. Come to me.
I'll be there soon.
Meanwhile, Stefan hadn't given up on finding the cure either. He proposed a partnership with Rebecca, and to show his sincerity, he revealed that Professor Shane was still alive. In return, Rebecca disclosed the secret of Professor Shane's sacrificial rituals. Stefan recalled what he had witnessed during his time in New Orleans. The dark magic that drew power from death was called expression. It was clear that Bonnie had already fallen into Professor Shane's trap. Stefan suggested they work together, but Rebecca was hesitant. She had been deceived and betrayed too many times.
Listen, I hate my brother, and you hate yours. But Damon's got Jeremy, Klaus has a sword, and Shane has Bonnie. You and I are the only ones left with nothing.
Elsewhere, after learning the truth from Rebecca, April immediately began working to clear her father's name. Professor Shane was the true culprit. Damon, after receiving a message from Klaus, brought Jeremy to a bar. only to find it littered with bodies. Klaus was calmly sipping his drink. It turned out that all these people were in the process of turning into vampires. They were Klaus's gift to Jeremy, a means to help expand his hunter's mark. Matt and Jeremy stared at Damon in shock. Damon, however, wasn't surprised in the slightest.
His idea was better.